Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Hello, everybody. Let's get into it. Welcome to the broadcast.
Got one that can see.
Good afternoon and good evening and good night, everybody, and welcome to Visual Disturbance. I'm your host, Brian Reese, and here we are coming in on a high octane, high philosophy. We're coming in with our nitrous, and we're coming in with all cylinders today here on the Visual Disturbance. Visually disturbed one day at a time, literally. And like I always say on the channel, a little spray, make you go cray, and have a little fun, humorous with that. So today it's Special Guest Wednesday. We haven't done a special guest for a long period of time with Visual Disturbance, and I'm very honored and just super thrilled to have this guest on today because there's just all this information coming out about this 3i Atlas. Literally, 3i Atlas is coming around the bend, so to speak, and it's all coming in at the 8, somewhere in the December time frame. So one would have to wonder what's really going on in our reality, folks, and things are getting weirder by the millisecond. So, but today, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, truth seekers, night owls, and everyone else has been staring at the sky and with whatever the heck is going on with their solar system, what have you. Today, the legend, the OG of YouTube, the man behind the Leak Project, the podcast that, you got to think about when it comes to dropping red pills all those years ago and even up to modern time, classified leaks for over a decade. And I'm super thrilled and honored to have this gentleman on tonight here this afternoon on Visual Disturbance. And without further ado, I have a question for you. Rex Bear from Leak Project, how the heck are you, my friend? And welcome to the channel.
Great to be here.
Doing great, man. I cannot believe we got to arrange this. I'm super thrilled. I could not think of anybody else to talk about this 3i Atlas topic. You've been very well versed with it. And I think you've been doing a spectacular job explaining it to the public on your Leak Project channel. So I couldn't ask for a better time. Timing on this is just so perfect right before Thanksgiving. And we're going to go into the later of the month here. And 3i Atlas has been changing dramatically by the millisecond. So it's an interesting day to have Rex Bear on the Visual Disturbance channel, my friend. But yeah, introduce yourself to everybody in the chat and let everybody know who you are, Rex, before we get started today.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I started Leak Project a little over 10 years ago. And before that, I had probably had between 80 and 100 different jobs. Everything from pizza delivery to timeshare sales. So I've tried it all. And I've asked for forgiveness for selling timeshare. I did it for a short while. Wasn't very good at it. Would you like to buy a timeshare? But I did learn a lot about people. I learned a lot about people, and I learned a lot about psychology and hypnosis. That was really interesting. Took it to the neuro-linguistic programming level. I started getting into NLP, and it just completely expanded my mind working with so many people that were like the Formula One of their position. It's just the top of the top. But I started Leak Project because before I started Leak Project, I used to be into all the stuff I talk about. I've been talking about it for, since I was a little kid. And I don't know how I knew what I did when I did, because a lot of the stuff that I talked about when I was just a kid or a teenager or in my early 20s, that would be considered conspiratorial is now mainstream. I mean, it's all over the place. And so it's pretty interesting how I knew that, because my parents are like super down to earth, awesome middle-class family, worked super hard to provide for me, amazing family, amazing parents, but they were never into the conspiracy side of things like I was. But what's interesting, Brian, is the past 10 years, I've actually debunked more conspiracies than uncovered conspiracies. A lot of stuff out there that people will put their heart and soul into thinking is legit is literally just made up nonsense. And a lot of times I think it's a part of the conspiracy to create new conspiracies. So what really matters oftentimes is in the, like on the next page. It's not on the front page. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I've done over 4,000 podcasts the past 10 years, met amazing people around the world. At first, when I started Leak Project, I was interviewing anybody and everybody that had something to say. And I got to the point where a lot of people were coming on the show just saying nonsense and making stuff up to sound, oh man, I met the Grays last night. We had dinner and then we went to Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was amazing. Stuff like that, But at the same time, I've also met people that have had genuine experiences that are so genuine, and information that has been shared on Leak Project that it just shake you to the core. It'll blow your minds. So like Navy submariners that have literally been abducted by what people refer to as the Grays. And the only place they wouldn't get abducted was in the submarine. And that's why they like to sleep in the submarine so much. So fascinating along the way. And this 3i Atlas thing is just, I was one of the first people to report on 3i Atlas. Actually, it was, I saw some work from Professor Loeb and I said, wow, that's very interesting. And started doing some posts on it and some podcasts, and it just took off after that. I've interviewed Loeb actually several years ago on Oumuamua, and he's a really nice guy. I've read all the conspiracies about Professor Loeb as well, and very interesting. And definitely, I'm going where the data leads me. But he's brought up some very interesting points about the potential for alien craft in space, something that isn't ours.
Interesting. So,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
You sure you still want to do the interview, bro?
No, we're good. We're good. Well, actually, to start off the first question I have for you, I said, how the heck are you was the first one, but the second one, Rex, you've covered a lot of whistleblower leaks, right? You've just mentioned Avi Loeb. You mentioned all kinds of different conspiracies, people that you've interviewed throughout time here. Since you've been tracking this since the beginning, what's your take on the alleged ESA insider who claimed 3i Atlas is showing engine-powered stability and not natural cometary deceleration? And have any of these sources collaborated with anything that you've seen to that nature?
Okay, so I don't know enough about that, but to me that sounds like speculation or somebody made something up, because I've been tracking a lot of the data, like everything I can find since inception. And to me, it appears to be more likely a chunk of an exploded planet. That's what I think 3i Atlas is. I don't think it's a spacecraft. I don't think it's got, like, I heard some ridiculous conspiracy where this guy that's an alleged intelligence officer remote viewed 3i Atlas, and he remote viewed 5 million reptiles ready to devour the humans. And it's stuff like that just, 10 years ago, I would have been the first guy on that. I would have been like, dude, there's 5 million reptiles coming to get us. But isn't this exciting? And now I look at that as like complete nonsense. And I've studied the EU cosmology, the electric universe cosmology. And to me, that makes like, if you just spend 10, 20 minutes studying that cosmology about comets and what comets actually are, it makes a lot more sense. Am I still open to the possibility that it's alien technology? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going where the data is taking me. But right now, it appears to be, it is a chunk of an exploded planet that has been traveling through space for so long, being irradiated, that's why the nickel iron, like when we find comets that are from our own solar system, there's more iron in the nickel. Like there's more iron compared to the nickel. This thing is mainly nickel, no iron. So that's one of the anomalies of this object. And the nickel itself is actually a nickel alloy that we produce here for industrial applications. So I can see how people would be like, well, it's why are we getting radio signals of OH, or why are we detecting with the spectroscopy? I'm saying that wrong. Oh my gosh, do I have a lisp or what? The data, they use these satellites to pick up the data and the signatures of what it's emitting, and it's like this nickel alloy. So, but most likely I see that nickel alloy, the reason it is like that is because it's been traveling through the solar system for so long that radiation itself from all the solar radiation and the stars has burnt off the majority of the iron. I do find the trajectory very interesting. That's one of the things that I'm not convinced about. So one thing that does make me question the possibility that this could be artificial is the trajectory. Very close to Mars, and close enough to Mars to where it could potentially drop off some probes, like Professor Loeb says, to test the planet. It'll be closest to Earth December 19th, which is the day, or depending on what your time zone is, 2 days before the winter equinox, or the winter solstice, I'm sorry. So there's a lot of dates that you can look at with religion and scripture, as well as before scripture, certain holidays that were looked at and renowned around the world, that people would say that's very interesting that it gets closest to Venus at this date, or it gets closest to the sun, or it gets closest to Earth the day before winter solstice. Very interesting. Some people have said that could be that's a sign for intelligent design. David Sarita, I've had David Sarita on the show several times. He's really good with math, and he shows how the alignment, or the location, I should say, of this object compared to certain planets lines up with religious dates. We did a really good podcast on that. I've got another friend named Jimmy Blanchette that I've interviewed that actually has a radio antenna system that is far more powerful than most radio stations. This thing's pushing 100,000 watts. And he figured out a way to change the signal, and he sent this signal to 3i Atlas with these antennas. He has done this before with his antenna set up, and almost instantly these lights appeared as he sent it into space. And the lights, when he slowed it down and replayed it and then calculated the lights, these lights showed the exact same patterns or the exact same geometry that you would see with the Great Pyramid of Giza. So he's done experiments before, blasting sounds and messages into space, and he's gotten some type of response. Now, these lights that light up, I asked him, I was like, okay, well, how do you know they're not stars? How do you know it's not an airplane? And we went back and we looked at the data, and he showed me a pretty compelling evidence that it's not there, because they all lit up at the same time. They're not airplanes, they're not stars, but it's not necessarily a UFO either. So that makes it even more interesting. Like, you're talking to the universe and the universe is talking back. I find that absolutely incredible. So we're still waiting to see if anything comes back from this 3i Atlas object. But the day, like, for example, another example with the anti-tells and all the different tells that are shooting all over the place, that people that study cosmology with the traditional comet cosmology model, snowballs traveling through space, they call them dirty snowballs. It doesn't make sense. You should only have a tell shooting away from the sun. But the fact that we're seeing tells pointing towards the sun, and we're not seeing it turn into like this pinwheel because it's rotating the object is rotating. I think it takes it about 16 hours to rotate, if I'm remembering that correctly. But as it's doing so, we should actually see if this is dust, if these tells are from dust or ice particles, we should be seeing like a pinwheel effect or in the images. And we're not seeing that pinwheel effect in the images. We're seeing straight lines and, over 1 million kilometers, these ion tells that are over 1 million kilometers. Now we've got one pointing towards the sun. So Professor Loeb has theorized that could potentially be some type of thruster to maneuver the object, possibly. But if you were to look at it from the electric universe cosmology and the plasma physics, imagine a plasma ball. Take a plasma ball, and in the center of the plasma ball, you've got that filament that's launching other filaments all around the plasma ball. And as soon as you touch the outside of the plasma ball, those filaments will link to your finger, right? Now imagine the sun is your finger, and this object is being electrically charged as it's traveling through the solar system, and it's charging and it's being filled with, like, it's heating up as well. So it's changing colors. If you look at metal, metal changes color when it gets hotter. Blue, I think, is one of its hottest points. So as this object is going around the sun and it's getting so hot and it's charging up, it's turning blue because of the heat. But before it got to the sun and we saw these anti-tails pointing towards the sun, that could be because it is electrically charging, and this energy, these plasma filaments, are through the universe and through the solar system. And so that's what we are observing. And so one of the theories about why are they not following the electric universe cosmology at NASA? Why are these super brilliant astronomers and scientists and professors not using the EU model, which is actually, there's I don't remember the name of this governing body, but there's a governing body which has basically adopted this electric universe cosmology on these comets. So it's not like it's completely fringe anymore either. But if we knew the truth about the universe and the solar system and how it really works, then in the future, and in the very near future, it might be a lot easier to create technologies where we could actually travel the cosmos. Like, not anti-gravity technology, but what people would think of as anti-gravity type technology. So that's one of the thought processes as why there isn't more information about the electric universe cosmology versus just traditional comets. And that could be why. Another thing too that we need to know about is the military has even admitted to this. I don't know if it's the military specific or like an organization or a project affiliated with the military. But the past several years, you've probably noticed there has been a lot more UFOs in the media, a lot more USOs, a lot more talk about extraterrestrials and craft that have crashed and been recovered. And then, you know, professors coming out and playing the game like, okay, well, let's do this live action role play. What if it is an alien craft? That was a big shift that happened around 2016, 2015, 2017, where I'm just going to use the term the powers that be, those that are running the show behind the scenes at very high levels militarily as well as domestically. They said, you know, let's try something out here. Let's do a live action role play. Let's get some very high level public officials to come out and talk about aliens and talk about extraterrestrials and spacecraft and stuff. So there's a big shift towards that movement. And whatever that reason is, I'm not 100% sure yet. I think they're already here, folks. Like, if anything, we're the aliens. Look at how different we are compared to every other animal on the planet. And we're like, anyway, so I don't think that there's going to be this alien invasion of 3i Atlas. Some people have talked about Project Bluebeam, fake alien invasion, and that's been talked about for decades. And if anything, once they pull that card, there's no going back. So I don't necessarily see them fully coming out saying that there's extraterrestrials. I think it's more of this drip dry. Well, this one official said that they've got this technology that they got from an alien craft, but this one official never saw that craft. They just talked about it with this other official. It's a bunch of gaslighting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that like neurolinguistic programming I was telling you at the beginning, even though like I was kind of joking about the timeshare thing, I was in my 20s when I did it. And I was just fascinated with how these people were able to get somebody to come in for a free gift and walk out with a $30,000 timeshare that they have to, you know, pay for the rest of their life, whether they use it or not, happy. One of the things I learned is how people can kind of get sucked in to certain things. And the media itself is so good at sucking people in to whatever they're trying to create, whatever they're making for that day or that week or that month, that agenda that they're sculpting your mind to follow it. And so that's why this whole time I've been talking about 3i Atlas, I'm saying, hey, look, I'm willing to look at the possibility that it's an extraterrestrial craft, but it's most likely not. And well, we've got 12 anomalies that say it is, Rex. Like the comments on my channel are amazing. They're so polarized when we talk about Three Eye Atlas or extraterrestrials, because one camp says all aliens are demons, and then one camp says, aliens don't exist, and then the other one's, oh, there's aliens everywhere, and they're doing everything. They're watching you right now, Rex. They're cloaked. They have dinner with me, and they tell me about it in my astral realm. Like, you know what I mean? So, excuse me. And that's if that's what somebody truly believes, like, okay, but there's a lot of people that just like to make stuff up in these fields, and they like to go on shows. Like, I'm not even going to like, let me put it to you this way. There's people that are doing interviews now that I know are without a doubt full of, you know what, and they're like getting millions and millions of views. So and it doesn't upset me. It actually makes me pretty happy that we're in as good of a position as we are as a human species, because people can be duped very easy. And so that's where I'm at right now in my life with Leak Project. Is I want to make it exciting, but I also want to get to the truth. I don't want to, play, let's play with made up stuff and then get other people to think this made up stuff is true, because I'm going to get more views. Like with Nibiru, prime example. Nibiru, everybody thought Nibiru was going to destroy the planet 10 years ago. They thought that 20 years before that. Does it exist? Maybe, but all the stuff we have on it, like all the images that people claim to be Nibiru, are lens flares or something else. If we could actually see Nibiru in the sky right now, we would not be having this conversation, because the sun would be launching solar flares and decimating the planet. It would be a nightmare. But there's also something going on behind the scenes that they're not telling us. And there could absolutely be a planet X or something that is causing these massive changes in the Earth right now. We've got a weakening magnetosphere. We have more extreme weather. The sun is heating up. The sun is, when I say heating up, it's getting very active, but it's a cycle. It's a cycle. We could be in a bigger cycle right now, getting close to that 12,000 year mark, which seems to be about every 12,000 years, there's a major event that takes place. So the powers that be, I think, work with that. Like they know when these events take place. They know about the star alignments, the planets and these comets and these asteroids, and they've known about them for a very long time, because it's like in their bloodline. They get this information as they get older and they get put in certain places in power, etc. But this Three Eye Atlas thing is fascinating, because this is the third object that we have seen and observed that is not from our solar system. We're going to see a lot more because of the technologies that we're working on. But that's where I'm at right now with Leak Project and Three Eye Atlas. It's most likely a piece of a shattered planet that got exploded. Kind of like the stories of Tiamat. We hear about Tiamat. We look at the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is most likely the remains of a planet. It could potentially be the leftovers of the Valley Marineris on Mars. If you look at Mars with the telescope, or see the images, you can see how the face of it, like a third of it, is gone. And that is most likely from electrical scarring from another planetary body, from plasma, like interacting, like when you get shocked or static electricity. Imagine that times a quadrillion times a quadrillion. Like you've got a planetary body that gets so close that you start having this electrical arcing that basically created that Valley Marineris in a very short amount of time. I don't think it took very long. It also could have been what caused parts of the Grand Canyon and created parts of the Grand Canyon. There is geology on this planet that shows electrical arcing similar to what you would see if you follow that electric universe cosmology. So when we read about these ancient tablets and scriptures that talk about the thunderbolts of the gods and these certain events that took place, it could very well be referencing these events that took place in the heavens, which could be linked to planets and asteroids. So Three Eye Atlas could be a harbinger, but it could also be the opposite. In history, asteroids and comets are harbingers of doom, but they're also bringers of life. And they have verified that some of these asteroids and comets have all the building blocks for life that we have here on Earth. So it's pretty cool.
Well, Rex, I just want to, not to get too far off track, but earlier you were saying you was misspeaking, you couldn't hardly speak. Listen, man, until 2020, man, I was speaking hillbilly for all those years, and I could barely pronounce the English language if it saved my life. But now here we are, visual disturbance world, and I'm speaking a little hillbilly hybridization Kentuckian. So
Nice.
you're in good company,
Perfect.
man. You're in good company. You're in good company, man. I'm not gonna knock off on how you pronounce pronounce words or what have you. So we're in good shape. We're in good shape. So to get
Spectrophacy.
well, here's the question. So getting back on the nickel and the elements of what Three Eye Atlas is showing, it reminds me, since you're talking about the heat element where it gets so hot, certain temperatures are rising, and it looks like a blue effect. We talked about this when I was able to come on your channel, the Hopi prophecy. You mentioned the Grand Canyon, how it was made, and you're talking about the electrical universe and plasma. You know, I have this whole another non-conformative mindset when it comes to your non-traditional alternative archaeology, what have you. I see things as, when you look at ley lines and energy sources, and it's probably similar to what you're talking about, the electrical universe theory and this plasma. It highly could be something to that level because the Hopi tribe, that Hopi tradition was talking about lines in the sky. I refer to them as spray, little cray narrative, but
Yeah.
something's up with this. Something is up, and I think the Native American culture was not. I think they wasn't as primitive as people have said in
No.
academia to say they are, and I think they was very. They're offsets of the Lemuria or the Atlantean stance, the pre-Adamic, the pre-Adamite, and Diluvian realm. These individuals had the cosmos written down certain ways and able to map and astrology and astronomy and all that. They had it all lined out. I just think when you look at ancient sites and ancient megalithic structures, all this stuff lines up in a pattern. And they would build, have you ever been to Angel Mounds in Indiana? Have you been to Angel Mounds in Indiana?
No, I've been to some mounds, but not the angel mounds.
So they built their structure, and where the story is, there's this big mound in the middle, but they had the way the city with the village was laid out, and you look at a certain time, it was built off the sun rays. Well,
Cool.
the mound in the middle was the great chieftain, and they worshipped and they buried the. You can still walk on top of the mound today. It's kind of odd. They have this. It's growed up brush around it, but they literally mow to the top where you can actually get to it and see an aerial view or see more of a higher elevation. And the story is the great chieftain's inside the mound. So it's either these entities, right? I've talked about it many times on the channel. The three-letter agency, talking about the larger than human-like people from the Flying Road document. I just presented that one, the Daily What Ifs I just did recently. And when you look at these individuals, these characters, they had remote, some type of telepathic remote control vehicles, what have you. And then they have, so we're talking about the Lakas, the Talas, and you're looking at the Hindu mythology, and that would kind of go along with the electrical universe theory that you're referring to, if you think about it that way. And there's so many different things you could go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, my goodness. So get this. So another question I have for you: wasn't the account with Three Eye Atlas, since the nickel account, wasn't they talking about that the water that was surrounding and submerging the so-called comet, meteor, or craft, it was millions or billions of years old, older than the Earth, supposedly, in the claim? Is that correct?
Yeah, they're saying it could be, 7 billion years old or older. One of the things about the whole water hypothesis and the traveling ice ball is, if it was an ice ball, you would think that there would be more around the coma as it went around the sun, because it would, at its speed and trajectory and sublimation, as an example, if it was just sublimation of these ice pockets that heated up and shot out these little vents of energy that caused it to move, there would be more mass evaporated from the nucleus. But there's not. They're observing that it's not. Now, the reason is, though, once again, is it's not a traveling ice ball. It is it's metal. It's a giant chunk of a planet that is for billions of years, or for however long, has been getting annihilated with radiation, charged with radiation. And I have a dear friend that is a Hopi elder, Grandpa Maleva. He's invited me to his house. We've broken bread. We've had soup at his house. He has a wonderful family. He shared a lot of stories with me. He's talked about the ant people, and he showed one image, one picture he showed me, and it's from the Smithsonian when they didn't even have modern cameras. They had to use these plates. One picture looked like this little tiny leprechaun dude. And it's the coolest picture I've seen that would make me say, "Wow, maybe the Ant Men are real. Maybe they are real. They're not the Greys. They're not the Anunnaki. They're completely different." He specifically said that as well. He says, "Rex, they have nothing to do with space aliens, and they have nothing to do with the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are like, they're tall, they're giants, they're more Nordic looking." I have a theory on that I'm not even going to get into here, but I don't necessarily think they're aliens. But anyway, and then the Greys. When you hear about the story of the Greys and people that get abducted by the Greys, like it sounds demonic. And I don't even have the mindset that they necessarily are demons, but they do sound demonic, and they torture these people, they mess with these people, and I don't know if it's for scientific purposes or what, but like very, very telling stories of people that are absolutely legit, that have never talked to somebody else that has had an identical or near identical experience. And the ant people like live underground, and they're helpful. But the Hopi stories talk about how, like my friend Maleva was telling me, how the ant people and the Hopis, they've actually been off planet before during cataclysms. They were taken off planet and then brought back. And I don't know if it's true, but I know it's certainly one of the stories and mythologies, or I don't want to use the term mythology. What is it when you have a group of people that talk about where they come from? What would you call that? Not a myth, but a legend.
Yeah,
legend. So it's fascinating. With that in mind, where am I going with this? I was going somewhere with this. I don't know where I was going with this. I'm going to drink.
You mentioned the ant people. I just seen this the other day. So just tell me how crazy this is going. So I remember specifically talking on your channel. He's talking about the Manakwabu and the ant people, the Greys, and he's doing some comparisons and just throwing some ideas back and forth. And this got me really thinking about, especially the news I heard recently. Have you seen the new robot that is coming out? They're selling it for $20,000 for consumers.
Oh, that is creepy as hell. Yes.
So get this. So did you see what they've done? Right. I thought it was autonomous. I thought it was all AI controlled. And get this, folks, and Rex, this is insane. There's going to be somebody hired that has a VR headset and controlling it, paid by the hour, paid by the day, and surveying. Observing. Technically, if you want to think about it, it's a primitive way of thinking on the terms remote viewing, or going around gardening, folding your clothes, infiltrating your home. Hello. But you got to think, it's not even it's not to the level of sci-fi, but supposedly the company is admitting that is a thing, and they're waiting to get the technology, get to the AI as far as autonomous, and the AI run it. So that reminds me of the Greys, the whole android synthetic. And what if these little creatures, these little leprechaun looking creatures, are either spiritual, biological, extraterrestrial, demons, all that good stuff collaborate into one, or it could be human element, and it could be just advanced military application where it just makes people fearful, or use them as to recon an area, and they're doing the same thing similar to what this android is being displayed for folks to order, I think, for $4.99 a month to lease it. So
right.
you got to think about that. So it's so interesting, man. I didn't mean to go on a big tangent about that, but that just really made me think about the ant people, and it really got me thinking about the remote viewing, all the CIA documents, the Monroe Institution, the telekinesis,
Gateway.
telepathic, all that stuff, the Gateway Project, the HemiSync. You have all these different applications and everything that they're incorporating. There's some shape or form being used. And I will say this, I was talking about a breakaway civilization the other day. I don't want to go too far off here. But breakaway civilization also, I could think about if there was a Vimana or Orfana, the craft, the cylinder-like shaped objects that has been reported all throughout history and antiquity. If you had those things then, how come they couldn't have them now? And I thought about looking into the early 1900s, 40s, and 50s. I would say in that time, something broke away as far as technology. And you mentioned the term powers that be, that they somehow basically split off into taking knowledge and taking technology. I got to watch what I say and respect the YouTube policies here, but
Sure.
taking that stuff away and then offset so-called island or breakaway civilization. And I think that's what we're looking at here when you look at the orbs and everything. So did you see, so speaking of, have you seen this this new footage? I'm going to show it here, present it here for everybody here at the audience. Have you seen there was an amateur astronomer, and he's talking about something he's found, a discovery. It's called Ray's astrophotography.
Yeah, I know Ray's astrophotography.
Okay, very cool. So he just dropped something the other day and talking about, is it anti-gravity or whatever this is? You mentioned earlier talking about there's, I don't know, aurora around it or something glowing or these orbs. You mentioned orbs at the beginning of the broadcast here. Let's just play this clip and give a shout out to Ray's astrophotography, and let's just show this to the audience here because it's pretty interesting to say the least.
I never saw any comet doing this. I have seen comets sending stuff in the back, and I have seen the tail. I can see the sublimation. I can see the sublimation. I can see dust tail growing. I can see like how the solar system comets behave. But I never saw a comet spinning.
It's
this
normal
way,
for comets
with all the gas, dust, everything around.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too, Rex. And here's my 2 cents on this, my friend. I really want your comments on this. So I got an image I can pull up here. One moment, I can pull it up and let everybody see it. There is, let me see. I got a better imagery of this. It's pretty interesting to say the least. So check this out, Rex. So as you can see here, I tried to get it the best I could, and I pulled it and extracted off the internet. But Mr. Ray is here talking about this and spinning, and like you just commented on here, that's pretty much traditional for the comets to spin. I got you. So I want you to comment on that here in a second too. But if you really look at this, and this imagery is kind of distorted, yes, it's pixelated, yes. But it reminded me when I first seen it, and then I watched the video over and over again, Rex, it reminded me of the Malaysia 370. I was thinking, you know, here's my mind going down this rabbit hole into my mind and the, you know, critical thinking mindset. I was thinking orbs, energy source, and black holes, whatever it is. And these orbs keep, they find themselves in these airports. It's like they're observing. It's like the TV series The Colony. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It reminds me so much of that TV series. I think it's a TVC's drama series. I think it was on ABC or something like that. But when you have these orbs and they're heating up, and it's kind of like this inertia, like this friction and whatever is happening, like you're talking about earlier with the heat. You know, I seen the clips that was claimed from the satellite imagery from Malaysia 370. It kept heating up, and all of a sudden, this huge plane just gets vanished into thin air, and just a black hole opens up and just goes into, you know, some type of paradigm shift or whatever. So it reminds me of that. And I've seen this many times in the past, looking through ancient books and looking at seeing the orbs show up and what have you. So hypothetical, what if there's something to this that is really just resonating with this comet, and it could be something to an extraterrestrial, which I claim, what I would say too, is artificial intelligence. Maybe we're looking at something of an ancient antediluvian realm that pre-existed and is somehow woken up, and it's just observing or something to that magnitude, and we don't know what to do about it. We don't have the technology to turn it off. We don't have the so-called code. I keep hearing some of these folks of a higher authority saying we don't have the keys, we don't have the code, and it's almost like biomatter code, like you have your quantum physics, quantum entanglement, and you have this principle behind, you know, that you have your binary code. And I'm thinking, is the keys not opened? Do we not have the technology? Maybe that's what they keep referring to, and they're going back to ancient Samaritan, Mayan, the Gobekli Tepe. Maybe there's just something so easy on an astronomy level on these ancient sites, Rex, that the keys are there, the information's there, the Antarctica Treaty, all these different mechanisms, and they're looking for the right keys. It's almost like the TV series Stargate Atlantis or Stargate SG-1. It's like they're looking for the chevrons. They're looking for the Stargate coordinates to actually talk about what you said earlier about teleportation mechanisms. And that's my take on this. So what's your expertise on this, and what's your opinion on this? Because this is very interesting to me.
So Ashton Forbes is very interesting. Ashton Forbes, great guy. We've done interviews. I was actually one of the first people to interview Ashton, and he's gone next level with his work, and he's doing a great job. The Malaysia flight, I know exactly what you're talking about. The orbs that appear to create some type of wormhole almost, and then the plane just disappears. And he had 2 different pieces of footage to show that happen, and there was people that came out to try to debunk it and say that it was CGI, but they couldn't say how. So yeah, Ashton's doing a great work there. Though that image to me, so if you want to go back to that image real quick, I want to point a few things out, because if you look at it, you'll see the center, what looks like an egg. And then you'll see, as you said, the 4, there's like 5 total objects, or what appear to be objects outside of it. Now, because of the resolution and because of the pixelization and how far away it is and the limits of technology, if we go back to the ESA footage or even the Chinese footage where they were showing the object and it appeared to have like some type of arms connected to it, it almost looked like a TIE fighter or something, and the way that it was moving in the object. Now, it was very, very low resolution, but it was the best that they had at the time, allegedly. I think they've got better, but that's what they're telling the public. And it looked like there were arms on it. So now we're looking at it, and it appears that they're not necessarily arms or like structures coming out of the object, but something surrounding the object. So I find that very interesting, and I think that it could potentially be artificial, but also what we're looking at could be venting, some type of off-gassing or something, or some type of plasma filaments, something that is being generated by the speed and the force and what it is actually made of. That nickel, as it's rotating through the universe, it's creating more static electricity and more plasma interactions, etc. So very interesting. I'm glad you showed me this, because it first made me think of the footage from the ESA, and I don't know, man, that's pretty freaking cool. Pretty cool. We need more input on that. So thank you for showing me that. Now I remember the red and blue Kachina. That's why I brought up my Hopi Elder friend, because if you think about it, if asteroids and comets are actually chunks of metal, they're going to turn red and they're going to turn blue, because they're going to change colors based upon the heat. The closer they get to the sun, the faster they go, the more static electricity and plasma that's being created, the hotter it gets. So it's going to change color. So that could be an object in the future that appears. It doesn't necessarily have to be 3i Atlas, because there will be other objects that we will observe that will go from blue to red or red to blue. So that's really cool that you brought that up. And as far as the prophecy goes of like the spider web, some people think the spider web could be from the planes. Some people think that could be from Wi-Fi. There's a lot, the World Wide Web. So there's a lot of different theories we can take in that regards, but also the modern Hopi prophecy that came out that's talking about all these end of the world events. We're only able to take that back to like the 60s. So, it could have been something that was kind of made up, or it could have been something that has actually been around for thousands of years. We just don't have 100% guarantee that we can verify that is actually, because I know the prophecy. There was a book that was written about it in like the 60s, and the guy that came up with it. So it would be nice if we could find some other literature to verify that. We do have petroglyphs, though, that are really interesting. Hopi petroglyphs that portray the cosmic web. They're far older than the 1960s. So we could look at that as evidence. And, we need to talk to the elders about it and see what they say. And hopefully they'll be open with us. Malave has been very open with me and shared a lot of information. And he's talked about how they have a prophecy where a star actually comes in and causes major chaos and destruction. And then it comes back many years later. So we'll see on that for sure.
It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that, and I'm going to show a video clip of this in more enhanced. The picture I just showed of the 3i Atlas. I'm going to show a video here in a second, but I want to comment on that, Rex. I'm thinking about the Indian cultures and thinking about, there was something I came across on a video I did about 4 years ago talking about the Ring of Brogard. And the Ring of Brogard, there's like this folklore around it about the giant that was listening to the fiddler. There was like somebody with a fiddle, like an instrument and fiddling, and there was these other giants, and the giant was supposedly coming from a comet and landed and said, don't look back. And there was all this kind of random build up of the storyline of like this cataclysm comes by and turns them to a pillar of stone. It's really interesting because there's these large stones that is like, it's an astronomer's dream. It almost looks like an observatory, and there's these large stones, and there's a bunch of them missing, right? So it's really interesting. So I did a show on it talking about where's the stones at, what is going on, and then I stumbled upon these so-called large stones, very similar to the ones in Ring of Brogard, but I stumbled upon it with a man-made structure here in Kentucky, and I'm not kidding you. They replicated the Stonehenge, Kentucky Stonehenge, and so all this stuff just blows my mind when you think about folklore, star people, large beings coming from outer space, what have you, and then you have these stories through antiquity, these stories of ancient times and historical documents that's not really hard. It's hard to find now, especially in America. But in Ring of Brogard, that story reminds me of don't look back, turn to stone. There's something maybe comparisons and similarities with the Hopi prophecy. There's like so get this. So there's some shelters here in Kentucky. You're very well versed and a little bit about Kentucky, but there's there's shelters that say this way to a Hopi rock shelter, and I'm over here going, what? Because the Adeans, this doesn't even fit. It doesn't even fit with the topography, the mapping of where they would be resided. So I'm wondering really what's going on with all that, and there's a lot of mixed up information that's been scattered abroad, but I would love to have talked to some of the Native Americans that you know of, because I say they're well versed in all that. But it's just interesting to scatter across abroad, and then it makes me think, you're talking about the electrical universe theory, the Grand Canyon. And when I process all this and really think about Egypt, and there's been claims that in Egypt, they have these tunnel systems that's full of artifacts of Egypt. Egyptologists have been finding them in the Grand Canyon. Maybe I'm wrong, but they say it's an ancient Stargate. I mean, really, what's going on? I've heard anywhere from, they call it the Rainbow Bridge or the Rainbow Project in the Grand Canyon. I've heard all kinds of theories. I've heard there's been men that are guarding certain gates, guarding certain entry points in the Grand Canyon, like full artillery, so to speak, and just sitting there locked and loaded, ready to go, and they divert people off. I've heard all kinds of just, you can't say it's credible, but that there is some type of history or, like I said, folklore that reminds me of all these things. So yeah, Rex, this stuff is something beyond our understanding, and I think the shamans of old and these tribes, they was seeing things like spiders. That's representation. I've seen some spider imagery, symbolism over there. We mentioned angel mounds, and I've seen that in many places I've looked at, rock shelters, and especially these museums. They see the spiders, and it's related to the cultures of Native Americans. And I'm wondering if it's all derived from, like you said, lines in the sky or whatever it is, and there's somebody is either communicating with something to the level of an astral plane or astral existence, or doing a little DMT trip or whatever, and communicating with, I mean, my goodness, quantum entanglement. We talk about quantum computers. I think there's a lot of granite and different things that are that's just random in nature, but not into our peripheral. We think it's natural, but a lot of these things have been covered up with hundreds of thousands of tons of dirt and sediment from erosion and floods and what have you. So these ancient sites that are around, they're emanating some type of energy. And I've been hearing in the 3-Eye Atlas, not to go down this rabbit hole, but when the 3-Eye Atlas, they said that the Antarctica had some type of energy weapon. There was these pulse systems being deployed. The planetary defense mechanisms has been deployed with 3-Eye because of 3-Eye Atlas. And I didn't even know we had a planetary defense mechanism. And I looked it up, and I think that I think it was completion in 2016. So all these things are really just kind of going back to the things I've studied, and especially in March of 2021, which they said there was an adversary coming, and all the folks, this is speculation, I remember on YouTube people was talking about it, that they all went down to Antarctica and they discussed about an enemy or adversary coming, and they wasn't going to lose this time. And they had these scrolls that they could identify. They had the knowledge to understand that these things are coming. So all of a sudden, fast forward to 2025, we have Three Eye Atlas, or the slow drip you referred to earlier. We had 2023 with the congressional hearing. We got the biologicals, all these different entities. We got the Peruvian little gray people. We got all these different things. Mexico did a thing with their Congress came together and did a UFO announcement there, what was last year or so. So all these things have been dripping, and here we are in 2025, and now the big hot topic is the Three Eye Atlas. So my question is, we got something about these aurora borealis that's happening with the different colors in the sky coming from the great north down here in my neck of the woods. I've never seen it until the last little bit, and especially here in the last week or so. And then it goes down to Florida. We have all these anomalies in the sky, and it's just things that make you go, and you don't know if the powers that be are pushing the agenda, pushing some type of particle accelerator, hadron collider, whatever you want to call it. Everybody always directly claims that CERN is at the head of this. But what if it's not? What if there's so many different things with mechanisms, with the quantum field, the quantum computers, and the quantum entanglement, and we really just don't know where we're at, and all these ancient elements and ore and different minerals that are under the ground, they're emitting some type of energy because of these comets that are getting too close to our atmosphere. What if that's what's going on? And then there's things to the level of the animal life, the habitation. I don't know about you, Rex, but around my neck of the woods, there's not many. I mean, I know it's getting colder and it's the winter time, but my goodness, man, I'm not been seeing many squirrels, birds or anything. And so it's interesting to me, and that's kind of strange for that time of year, even November for here in Kentucky. So I don't know if there's something going on that is disrupting everybody's GPSs, but something has to be going on. I think it's affecting the earth life, the flesh on top of the face of the earth. That's my opinion.
I mean, that's a lot, bro. And I hear you. I just did a deep dive on HAARP yesterday and climate modification, etc. And even though there's dozens of patents for climate modification and weather modification, etc., a patent doesn't equal current technology. With that said, though, there are experiments and weapons and tests that have been done since the 60s. Operation Starfish is one example. I think it's Starfish in 1962, where the military was detonating nuclear bombs in the ionosphere to see what would happen. And that absolutely affects the climate. With that being said, HAARP, as fascinating and frightening as it is to some people, it does not have the power or the technology to make the aurora borealis down here in the lower 48. You can get something about 120 miles away and it can create artificial auroras and plasma, which looks really cool, but it's at a very small scale. So it's our sun, it's Sol, that is creating these aurora borealis and these amazing skies. And it's actually very, very interesting because we haven't seen this type of activity except for the past couple of years off and on. We haven't seen the aurora borealis in Colorado on a regular basis to be this far down. And the magnetosphere is weakening. And NASA has been tracking, and other space agencies and other intelligence agencies have been tracking this gravitational anomaly in the Atlantic that is huge. And last year, I reported on how they were using seismographic data and earthquake data to study the Earth's inner core, because obviously we can't go down that far. So they're studying it with the data that they have available. And it shows that the Earth's inner core is slowed down so much, it's potentially reversed course. And even though that's such a small amount, and with the atmosphere, with the magnetosphere, with these aurora borealis events that we're seeing, and the atmospheric flooding, the drought, all this extreme weather, it seems like, something's going on. And I think something is going on, but I think it's a cycle. Some people blame it on Planet X. We can't prove that. Maybe some people blame it on there's plenty of scapegoats. But what if, and that's another thing about the powers that be, they love to take credit for everything. They love it when people think that all the problems in the world are because of them. They feed off of that. And so we can't give them too much credit for too much. I used to be kind of down that line, down that thought process as well. And then the more research I've done, like I said, I've put my heart and soul into uncovering what's out there. And the more I do, the more I realize we have more power than we think we do. and they might not be as powerful as we think they are. The powers that be. Now, who are the powers that be? That's for a whole other podcast. I think that if anything, bro, I think that ET is already here. I think they've been here for a really long time. I think that we were modified potentially by a civilization not from Earth, or a breakaway civilization not from Earth. And they've got the blueprint, but just because they have the blueprint doesn't mean they're doing it all. Like nature is far more powerful than mankind. Nature can be far more barbaric at times. You know, like I've thought about that before. Let's be more, you know, nature's so kind. Bull crap. Have you, like, even a house cat, man? Cats are like assassins. They look all cute and innocent, but they will torture that mouse until like it, you know, and why are they doing that? Why are they torturing the mouse before they eat it? It's kind of spooky, right? And somebody said, well, Rex, what do you know what that sounds like? That one stuff that gets created when you're, you know, that you hear about that the elites allegedly take. And I don't know if they do or not, man, but it is interesting to think about nature and humankind. But you know what? I think that's why we're here. Humankind. Be kind. I think we're here to be stewards of the earth. I think that's why we were originally designed by the divine creator, to be stewards of the earth, to be helpful to the planet. And maybe there will be a time when we save the planet, because look at how much the planet does for us right now. I mean, the clothes, the food, the water, our survival is absolutely linked to the planet. Yet oftentimes, and we forget that. And we think that it's just here for us. Well, maybe we're supposed to work together, and maybe there'll be a time when we do divert an asteroid or a comet or stop utter destruction on the planet. And maybe that's why the planet and God, the creator, has been so patient with us as a species, in hopes that we'll get our act together and we'll figure things out, and we'll start being better stewards of the earth. But something does not want us to know what's really going on. And whether it thinks that if we know what's really going on, that we'll be unstoppable, so it won't be able to control us anymore. So it'd be like letting go of your pet, or it just likes to control us. You know, we've got this division, this divide and conquer, this left, this right, from everything, from politics to religion to various other things. It would be really cool if we could just kind of relax a little bit sometimes when it comes to the other person's opinion, and try and put ourselves in their position and look at things through their eyes. And then we might come to a better understanding of what's really going on. That's my I have a dream moment. That's what I'm hoping for.
So I have this. So I come at things a lot with biblical perspective here, and I was thinking what you just said a minute ago. First of all, if you know the cat and the mouse, I think cats are on another level. I've read so many different things about, you know, you look at them in Egypt, how they worship them, and I've even seen where people speculate that the cats was not a spirit guide or a spirit. They was there to protect them from the spirits, protect them from whatever was coming, a demon nature, whatever it is. But just to kind of go back to what you were saying, I think about the Garden of Eden, the fall of man, the sinful state. You know, you look at the movie that really resonates with me right now during this conversation is Dark Tower with Matthew McConaughey. And they kind of play off of that a little bit with the biblical narrative. And then the gunslinger tells the kid, I remember they're at this carnival, like broken down, run down fair. And he looks and he builds a circle. He's talking about the perimeters and these different sectors, dimensional gateways, what have you, all these portals. And I think they was in an emergency room or something. The little kid was looking at something on a commercial. It was like a raccoon. And the gunslinger goes, I remember, you know, like they was talking about, referring to in the line of, I know when the animals used to talk or whatever. And the kid was like, what? They never talked. So it's like a interdimensional concept, and then they're kind of playing off of the terminology of the Adam and Eve story, you know, as far as biblical narrative. And I think, you know, in the cats and you have all these different creatures that are attacking each other throughout time, and it's primitive, right? It's tribalistic, even on a level to us. We get to that level, you know, we almost look like the monkeys act better than us in some shape or form, the gorillas and those species, you know, it's just kind of strange. But when you look at us and you think about where we come from, that tribalistic mentality can really rise really quick. And I think, like I've said many times, be a better human. I've said this many times on the channel, be human as far as humanity, we need to be more respectful toward each other and have empathy. And I think what you was referring to earlier, these things are watching, the watchers of old, when you look at the book of Enoch and look throughout the biblical scriptures and even other non-canonical texts, you have all these things that really are telling a story of something watching, observing, and how you're going to walk and monitor, how you navigate through your world, how you treat people, how you respect people. And I think the number one word of this is empathy. Show empathy toward all walks of life. And I think that with when we have evil in our mind and our heart, we destroy things because we project that evil onto things. Because cats, dogs, birds, whatever you want to call it, the animal tree, they know when you're of evil nature. They know that you're going to be aggressive. They know, I've seen this so many times in the past, and cats are very sensitive to that, and they can kind of navigate when somebody's going to come up to them and have a very not good experience with the cat because the cat's going to claw your eyeballs out. So the thing is, I'm just thinking about the spiritual side of things, the physical side of things, and how these correlate with something so ancient throughout time, and we're either waking up to it and trying to forget, okay, can we put all these things, these differences aside because it's a human construct of all these different mechanisms and applications. But the spiritual things, the spiritual side, like you said earlier, I think we're more powerful than what they have portrayed us to be. So in or I can't even talk right now, but in hindsight with that, you knock yourself down. You tear yourself down, and then ultimately you are projecting negativity. You're not positive, and I think they've done a good job with that. And I'm not trying to give credit to them, but they've tore everybody apart. There's been so much discord, and people ridicule each other over anything, what you wear, what you look like, what pair of glasses you wear, whatever that is. The human mentality is just been scorned, and it's been taken into a direction of a dark path, in my opinion. I think that when people come together, like we're having this conversation, you come on the channel, and we can just come together and talk about the specific topic and be inhumane, be just a really good human, and speak about these controversial topics and get a different perspective from a different pair of eyes or a different pair of goggles. And that's what I love about this, and I love that we're doing this together here on this channel today, and I'm so thankful that you're here. So there's my take on that, Rex. I think about biblical stance on it, the sin. There's some type of spiritual darkness with that, when it comes to that, and whatever come out of the garden. There's so many different things with instruments we could go down the rabbit hole with the book of the Cave of Treasures, referring to the book of Adam and Eve, all these different things. But that's for another broadcast in itself. But I really do think the animals at one time, way back in the day, probably spoke in some type of language, whatever. And I think we could communicate in some shape or form, but I think it's all been turned off, and you can see it because we're just going around, hey, cat, you can't speak, right? Tom and Jerry. But I seen something recently where there's a mechanism, there's a collar, there's a technology with AI mechanism that it's going to be able to, when you speak, the cat's thoughts will, in this little box, this little voice box, will speak back to you, Rex. I'm not making this up. So that's a new technology coming out. So with the feline, the wolves, hello, human, I'm going to devour you in the woods. You know what I'm saying? Shot collar, it's not going to be good. So it's going to be interesting if that is legitimate and AI has that mechanism. So I just didn't mean to go in a big rabbit hole, but I think the changing of our climate, the 3-Eye Atlas, it's either a psyop or whatever it is. I'm not discrediting anybody, any shape or form, but there's something to the level that it's got everybody's attention on something. This great convergence of 2025, it all kind of leads to that focal point in history. So even the Mayans, all these folks was talking about this back in the day, in the 2025 narrative. So it's just interesting that we're either on this trajectory to this more unlocking of knowledge, of awakening to understanding the cosmos better, or whatever this is. But I think if it's not a comet, my take on this, my friend, is it's the Vimanas of old, the Orphanas, the Ifa that is referred to in biblical narrative. I think we're looking at something of an angelic, or looking at something, or I'm still open here, or a biological Android-like thing, or it could be a collaboration of both, or it could be something totally off the Richter scale that mankind has never seen before. So I'm open to hear, and I'm open to listen. I'm open to learn about it, and that's why I've got you on here. And I've still got so many more questions, but man, this has just been awesome. So I'll give the floor back to you, my friend.
Sure. Oh, thanks, man. Much appreciated. It's great to be here. And I think we've gone pretty deep. We could definitely go deeper. We'll see. We'll see. Time's going to tell. And I've got a telescope, so I'm going to be able to watch 3i Atlas. I just have to figure out how to get all the electronics. I've got this really nice telescope with camera equipment and computerized, so it'll link up with the object and it'll follow it and track it. I just don't know how to get the thing to track. Like I can do everything else, but I don't know how to track, to link it to a specific object where it'll track that object. So if anybody wants to help me, if anybody knows about that, I've got a Meade 8-inch telescope. It's got the dual metal mounts on it. So it's pretty solid, and it's every bit good enough to pick up 3i Atlas. Like we've seen images from 8-inch Celestron telescopes that are amateur telescopes that look awesome. And I'm out here in Southern Colorado, high elevation, dark skies. So I'd love to get that to track it, and we'll find out, man. It's going to be pretty exciting. I would like to say this as far as the cosmology linked to mythology, linked to religious scriptures. One thing that you might consider looking into, as you know, like I can read a lot of people's comments in the comment section, and there's a lot of people that are very religious, and I think that's really cool. There's astrotheology. There's something called astrotheology. A lot of times when we read the Bible or scriptures, we might take something literal when it's more metaphorical and more spiritual. And maybe not always, just something to think about. But if you study astrotheology and it describes the zodiac, and the oldest religion is the stars, the oldest religion and belief systems linked to the stars. That's why we see megaliths that are aligned in certain ways, etc. But there's certain scriptures you can read, and if you understand the astrotheology behind the scriptures and behind the zodiac, then you can say, oh, they're talking about a specific constellation. Give you an example. The Epic of Gilgamesh is older than the Bible, but it's actually ancient Sumerian, and a lot of the biblical scriptures have adapted from ancient Sumer and Babylon and the Akkadian texts and the Greek texts, and they've kind of put them into, the 66 books that are available through, I think, the King James version. There's other versions you can get as well. But if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh wants immortality. And I noticed there were some people in the comments that were talking about the Anunnaki and Gerald Clark. I have a feeling he's doing awesome in the spirit realm right now. Like he's probably doing all sorts of stuff behind the scenes, but rest in power, Gerald. You were an amazing inspiration to me. We used to do a lot of podcasts on the Anunnaki and the Sumerian stuff. And just 10 years ago, if you would read the Epic of Gilgamesh, there was a lot more thought that when Gilgamesh is fighting these like scorpion beings and these lion beings and these what else? Like the ram type being, and there's other monsters that he has to fight to get immortality. Well, instead of reading that literal, look at it astrotheologically, where the scorpion, the giant scorpion, represents Scorpio, the giant lion represents Leo, and you start to understand that it's referring to the zodiac and traveling through the zodiac. Even to reach immortality, he has to reach Upnaphistan, and that is linked to the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius is linked to the age of man and immortality, potentially with technology. So look at all these technologies right now that are coming to the forefront, and as frightening as some of them are, they're equally fascinating because every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So the singularity by 2030, potentially, if we can reach the singularity, then we could have machines that could extend lifespans for thousands of years. So that's pretty cool to think about. I mean, I wouldn't mind being able to, ride my mountain bike until I'm 50,000 years old and, ride up Wolf Creek Pass like a maniac and stuff like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. Some people are like, no, I want checked out, man. Give me 90 years, give me 80 years and let me go. But, I think it'd be pretty cool to be able to experience more and spend more time with your family and friends on a physical level as well. So That's my thought for the day. Deep thoughts, not down by the river at high elevation. And at 1 o'clock, I will be live streaming the NASA
Awesome.
conference on 3i Atlas. So, and we should do this
Awesome.
again, man. I'd love to,
Yeah.
to talk again. Let me show something though.
Definitely show it. Yeah, definitely show what you need to show for sure.
This is 3i Atlas. Now, I don't know if this is legit or not. This could possibly be not legit, but the data that I've followed suggests that it is. Is it pulling up? I think you need to share the screen. It's on the bottom there.
Okay.
If not, that's okay. We could do it another time.
It should be on there. Yeah.
It's not pulling up, but I
well,
see it down on below the screen, but that's okay.
Yeah, I pushed it for X. It's not on there. Is it not allowing you to do it, my friend?
No, I'm sharing the screen. I'm sharing it right now.
Okay.
So it says screen shared, and if I hit the button, it'll stop screen share. So,
yeah, I apologize for that. Yeah, it's not coming up on my end. Excuse me.
No worries. But all I was going to say was you brought up the Planetary Defense Network through NASA, which I think was around 2016. But if we go back even before that, there's what's referred to as the International Asteroid Warning Network, which is separate, and that was activated for 3i Atlas. So a lot of people are like, wait a second, why did they activate the warning network if there's nothing to be worried about? And they're claiming it's because they're going to be able to understand asteroids and comets better and the trajectory for future endeavors and future understanding, which is definitely possible. And, here's the thing, maybe we don't have anything to worry about with 3i Atlas. Maybe 3i Atlas is that like caveat, that carrot at the end of the stick, while there's 10 other comets coming in that pose even more threat than 3i Atlas and could be even more bizarre. We're all looking at 3i Atlas. There was a K1 Atlas, which just broke into several pieces, and it's going to be making a fairly close approach to Earth here this month, astrologically speaking. So that could be more of a threat. Like if we get in the debris field, if there's some type of electrical interaction with that comet, that could cause some problems potentially. So it's not just 3i Atlas anymore. And we have to remember, as weird as 3i Atlas is, it's only the third object that we have observed coming from another star system. So it might not be weird at all in other star systems.
Interesting. Well, there's one more video I wanted to show. It's just it's like a minute long or less. I want to get your take on it. I think, in my opinion, I know what it is, but I'm going to give your take on it. But it's something that NASA just had recently. It was a live stream, and they cut the feed. And I want to show this to you. It's kind of interesting to say the least. So just check this out. I've got a close-up picture of it too, or close-up video footage on it also. So one moment.
At the work volume, we're going to have the UV lights running for decon, and we don't want you entering that work volume while it's still in work.
You'll see the orb like on the right side of the screen.
I will not do anything inside the work volume. There you go. Thanks for the heads up.
Excellent config. You're very welcome. And just to kind of smooth things over, when we do come back, KU, you'll be on space to ground 3 for your ops today with Shankini.
And then it'll come out the other side here in a minute, Rex, on the left side. It's almost like there's an obstruction.
3 with Shankini. Thanks.
And I've got a close-up video footage here in a second. I'll show you. It's like a cloaking obstruction. And here's my take on this, and I'll give you the actual zoomed-in version too here.
Looks like the TR3B.
There, that's exactly what I was going to say. You read my mind. So the TRB3, absolutely. So there's like some type of technology there, something there that was obstructing the view of the telescope. So what's your take on this? NASA today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, like Rex said. So check his channel out, A Leak Project. He'll be going live and streaming the NASA, the live stream event for that. But yeah, so what's your take on this? So what do we have an obstruction? There's something in the sky that's obstructing the view. Then they had the TRB3 rolling around doing some type of survey.
Okay. So the first thing that came to my mind was it was a terrestrial reflection that was going to actually discredit the space video. So they tried to block it out. Have you ever seen before where they've had people in alleged space and they're floating around and they're like, oh dude, we're in space. Yet you can see other pieces and objects that are totally just sitting on the desk, not floating around like it should be. I thought that, but I also thought TR3B. So those are the two thoughts that came to my mind. That could have very well been some type of craft that they don't want us to see. The whole blocking, that thing was weird, like you said, because it shows up, then it completely disappears, then it shows back up again. That's what made me think it was potentially a terrestrial reflection off of something. But that was really cool, man. That was really cool. And what's even cooler than that video, one that has me like still blown away to this day, is where NASA launched a tether into space. I think it's like SV40 or something. What's the name of this? They launched and there's like 15, 20 minutes worth of footage. They launched this tether into space and it gets electrically active. And then all of a sudden you see all these circular objects show up. They like literally appear. Hundreds of these things show up around this electrically charged, whatever they shot into space. And they're moving around like with intelligence. They're moving. They're some of them are going faster than others. And I'm like, what are these things? Because I don't know if they were necessarily spacecraft, but they look like they were living entities, like something you would see in water under a microscope or something like that. The way that they were moving around. Folks, go back and watch this video. If you haven't seen it already, you've probably seen it. Just type in NASA launches tether into space and hundreds of objects appear. You can watch the raw footage of that. Now, NASA said that what we were watching was ice crystals. After they launched this tether into space, that created all these ice crystals from the exhaust created ice crystals, which somehow started moving around the way that they did. And that's what we were observing. I'm not convinced of that. And that's another thing that makes me say, no wonder they don't want us to know what's really going on in space. No wonder they don't want to show us better imaging of our planet. And they want to create this division where people think that the reason they're not showing us what the Earth looks like is because the Earth's flat. I'm not going to get into that debate because I know there's plenty of people that probably think that it is. But when you've seen the curvature with your own eyes, like I've got a Nikon P1000 and my parents live on the ocean in Washington, and I track this one. I mean, there's plenty of ways you can do this without a P1000, but I track this ship slowly fade away into the horizon. And just further down is this huge fishing vessel. But people get so mad when you talk about the shape of the Earth, like they will hate your guts if they think the Earth's flat and you show them that it's not. They will hate you sometimes, or vice versa. So I just want to say I love you. I'm not going to get into a debate about what shape the Earth is, but I think let's just say for a second that it is a sphere. And the reason we're not seeing good images of the planet is because there's stuff there's stuff outside of our planet that they don't want us to see, combined with all the satellites and the Star Wars program that they developed in the 80s that they kept hush-hush for a very long time. I mean, maybe that might have something to do with it. I don't know. But I'm sorry I even brought it up because now I know people are going to hate me in the comments. Don't hate me.
But yeah,
I have a tough time not saying what's on my mind, ladies and gentlemen. It's because I love you.
That's what it's all about. I really wanted you just to come on here and feel comfortable and be in a good place, and hopefully you'll come back. Hopefully you'll come back to the Visual Disturbance channel, and I really would like to have you back on to talk about these specific topics, or we could talk about aliens or UFOs, Sasquatch, what have you. But I have one more question for you. I actually had about 7 more questions I didn't get to answer for you, but
I can answer. If you got some questions, I'll answer them fast. We can do rapid fire.
So, well, you've answered quite a few of them, but I just have one more. Technically, I could summarize it and just collaborate all into one. So, putting this all together, as far as Rex, on your scale of a natural interstellar comet to fully artificial extraterrestrial probe, because I've heard Avi Loeb say that these are probes. They're sending probes to the face of the Earth. There's some type of technology. I've heard New Agers talk about it as it's planting seeds into us. It's giving humanity some type of new awakening or evolution system or whatever is being deployed out of this 3i Atlas. And where do you personally place 3i Atlas right now? And here we are in November, and I know December is supposed to come and really do something, and we're all kind of waiting. So what's your overall take on that? And I have one more question after that, but just to summarize, what do you think all this is? Is it a probe? Is it an artificial comet? Is a comet fully artificial extraterrestrial probe, or just an interstellar comet, just a traditional comet?
I think it's a piece of a planet that was blown up, and it's been traveling through space for a really long time. That's why, once again, when we look at the data, the satellite data that's tracking what signatures from, like, what is being released and what type of materials are being observed through these satellites, that it's mainly nickel and not iron. And I just read somebody leave in the comment, well, that nickel that you're referring to is a nickel alloy here on Earth, which is only found in industrialization processes. And you're right about that. And that's really incredible. The thing is, if this object has been traveling for even a tenth as long as they are saying that it has been, traveling through deep space, being bombarded with cosmic radiation, could eventually evaporate. I don't want, not the term evaporate. There's a better term to use, but eliminate the majority of the iron, and you would have this nickel ball, this giant nickel like egg flying through space. Now, another thing I wanted to point out, let's say that this is alien technology and aliens decided to build a space station inside of a comet. Like, if they have the technology to do that and travel through space, they probably wouldn't do that. The whole Stargate thing, I think, is much more plausible than traveling through deep space in an asteroid that has been converted into a spaceship. I mean, can you imagine how uncomfortable that would be, traveling at 130,000 miles an hour and then spinning around every 16 minutes? Like, what kind of technology are you going to design that prevents you from moving with this object? Like, would they create some type of artificial gravity inside of the comet, so as it's rotating, you're staying, like, upright? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I just have a really tough time believing it's an extraterrestrial spacecraft, because I think that, once again, they're gonna, dude, if we've got technologies to make planes disappear like that, you don't think they have technologies to do that as well, to go from point A to point B, like you were talking about, this quantum connection? They would most likely have the ability to create something to allow a Stargate into this planet without having to go through millions of years of cosmic radiation at the speed of light. That makes way more sense to me. I think this is kind of a live action role play as far as the alien hypothesis goes. Like I talked about at the beginning, how the whole persona of aliens and extraterrestrials in 2016 shifted dramatically towards, let's talk about aliens, let's talk about extraterrestrials, versus they don't exist at all. And I do absolutely believe in ETs. I've seen a metal sphere. My wife and I saw a metal sphere 50 feet off the ground, Pagosa Springs, 11 o'clock position, about 1:30 in the afternoon. 1 second it's there. I go to get my phone to take a picture of it. The next second it's gone. That thing was incredible. Now, does that mean it's and I live close to Dulce, New Mexico. Do you know how many theories and conspiracies there are to Dulce? I used to go out and search for the underground vents, and I was looking for some evidence that it was there. Every local I talked to had told me an interesting story about what they'd seen in the sky. I have talked to at least a half dozen locals out there that have seen bizarre orbs dancing around at night, weird stuff you can't explain. But I don't necessarily think that the underground base in Dulce is alien. I think it's far more sinister. Like the whole Phil Schneider story, I went down that rabbit hole very far. I will tell you this, though. I won't go look for it again, because the last time I went and looked for it, I had a dream that very next, like before I woke up the next day, that was so vivid, where I was on my knees. Somebody was behind me and they were like, okay, this is it. You're done. You're not coming back here again. And I was like that for a few minutes, and I was like, oh, this is it. I'm done. This is my final moments. This is weird. And then I woke up, luckily, and there was a black widow in my bathroom. So
wow.
Staying away from that place. I won't be going back there again.
Wow.
So there's weird stuff out there, man. I'm not trying to discredit everything. I'm just doing my best to look at it as realistic as possible. Dude, when I was just a baby, I was a toddler, I had an experience that I still remember to this day in my crib. Whatever was looking at me was not human. And when I was growing up, I thought to myself, like, I always compared these things that were looking at me to like life-size Star Wars figures in Return of the Jedi, there's those insectoid-looking beings that are playing instruments around Jabba the Hutt. That's what my mind remembered seeing when I was in my crib. I wasn't even 2 years old yet. I can describe the situation like it was yesterday. The room that I was in, the door to the left of me open, the hallway, all of it. I can explain it all. And that really sparked my interest towards ETs and non-human intelligence. But I don't believe a lot of the stuff that people think are aliens and UFOs and flying saucers actually are. So I've just learned through the years that you can't take a picture or what somebody says on the internet as fact, because a lot of times those pictures are they're not even doctored, but just the way that they look. Like you brought up the Grand Canyon. I know where the location is supposed to be to the Kincaid Cave, which is what some people say where they found a lot of the Egyptian artifacts. And if you've got a friend that's Navajo, maybe they'll take you there. I went to the rim. I didn't actually go to the cave itself, but the cave is like 3,000 feet down. And the only way you're going to get to this cave, if it even exists, and it was on the front page of the Arizona Gazette in the early 1900s, where they claim that this Kincaid, he's on a expedition on the Colorado River, and he sees this cave that's about 1,200 feet up or 2,000 feet up. So they go up to the cave, and they actually, in the story, they weren't Egyptian artifacts; they were Oriental artifacts and mummies. There was a bunch of mummies. They were all male, which makes them think that it could have been some type of like military group. But anyway, I know where that location is. I've been there. And the experience was one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life. And it was amazing. And there was a Black Hawk helicopter that flew over us when I was out there one of the times, amongst other things that I'm not going to necessarily say here, maybe in the future, but I'm still not convinced about all the stories we hear about the Grand Canyon. Like, maybe, but I need more input. So I follow the data. There was one picture that somebody took from Google Maps, and they said, "Look, it's a temple in the Grand Canyon. It's an ancient Buddhist temple. You can see clearly. It's Google Maps." And so I saw it on Google Maps, and I'm like, "Okay, let's go." And so I grabbed my friend Shondell, Navajo, awesome guy. We went to that location. We found that, and it was just a bunch of rocks. Well, guess what? Everybody was all excited before I went. There's all these, these internet gurus out there. Rex is going out to find the temple to the Grand Canyon. As you can see, this photo right here shows clearly that there's a temple in the Grand Canyon. I went out there, man, and it wasn't a temple. It was cool, but it was just rocks. And they didn't share anything after that. They just went hush hush about it. I'm like, come on, guys, what happened, man? So anyway, it's just people get excited about things, and they're like, oh, I saw a picture. It's got to be real. And even before artificial intelligence came out, now look at people following artificial intelligence, man. I saw an amoeba, like this amoeba, and people were like, "That's 3i Atlas. That's footage from Japan, Rex. It's amazing."
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. I don't even think is that either AI generated or legitimate? And that was supposedly leaked footage of 3i Atlas from the Japan astronomers. But I don't know, man. It looked more AI to me. It really did. It looked more AI. I mean, it doesn't. That one was pretty terrible, really. But real quick before we conclude the broadcast, I have one more question. It just reminded me. He's talking about planes disappearing. If they had the technology to do planes, if they can disappear with the plane or time dilation or what have you, this could go back to when you look at the Tartarian Empire. Or look at these civilizations, look at the Mayans, look at these places just belly up and disappear. And I remember very specifically years ago that you did this, and I think you even traveled to some of them. Do you remember the phallic, like the obelisk, just the silver chrome obelisk all over America?
That's weird. You're weirding me out, dude. Do you know why you're weirding me out?
Why's that?
I literally saw that photo today, and I sent it to my friend Angela. Yes, I was at the obelisk in Moab. And let me show it to you. I literally.
No way.
I swear. Okay, this is cool. All right.
There it is. Yeah.
So Let's talk about that for a minute. Remember, everybody's like, dude, it's an alien. An alien put an ovule there. It's incredible. It's from 2001 Space Odyssey. So I'm like, I got to go out there and I got to find this. So I went out there and I found it, and it's amazing. And the next day, somebody took it down.
No way.
So they blamed me for that. They're like, Rex, did you take down the monolith? No, I did not take down the monolith. But what I did see was it wasn't an alien. An alien didn't put it there unless an alien went out and bought like some heavy duty saw at Home Depot, because you could see the saw marks where they actually sawed it in, like these two big marks where they used the saw. I don't know what kind of saw you would call that, but then it was put in after, and you could see carefully, like if you looked at it carefully, you could see it wasn't just one precise, perfectly smooth monolith. Somebody built it. And it was really, really cool. And a whole bunch of other copycats did it afterwards and made, oh, it's alien monolith. It was made by a dude and he did a really cool job of it. But yes, it wasn't alien. Unless he was the alien.
Wasn't he from Sweden or New Zealand or something? Wasn't the artist from another country? I think it was Sweden, if my memory serves me correct.
Something like that, yeah. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but something like that, yeah.
What's interesting, I'm not gonna lie to you, this was I done a show a couple years back, but it was found there was a new one that was erected in a dairy farm not too far. And I said, man, so who was up with that? And then the owners didn't even know what was going on. They didn't even know. Supposedly there's security cameras and everything, and there was like this big controversy over it. Was on, I think, even made mainstream at one moment, and they're having these articles about it like they don't even know how it even appeared. So whatever that is, if it's either human interaction or whatever, we could be looking at something here way beyond our pay grade. But look, the proof is there. You got the video you got the photo there. I mean, I remember you doing a lot of work on your leak project, but they was not just out on the western side. They was over here toward the east side too, all of in America. So
around the world, they found it in different countries.
Yeah. So this stuff is either supercharging something to a level of a magnitude, because there's no way that even with some folks that I know that are great welders, they couldn't mass make those in production line to pull off that without having a crew and be able to have the same template the architect work. I mean, this is the effort for that is you can't do it by yourself. So unless the man done it for 30 years and made them piece by piece since the 1970s or whatever. But I just thought I'd bring that up, and that's so interesting that we synced up on that whenever. That's kind of strange and odd that I brought that up and you was talking about this today with one of your friends. So the technology is disappearing. If you can do an object, and I'll just take it, I don't want to go too deep here, but dark lightning is a factor. You can look up dark lightning, and it can strike a object out in the ocean or in the air, and it can sometimes in the right conditions, all the occupants of the plane can literally be shielded from it, and there could be as far as the plane failing, what have you, the electrical components from falling out of it, whatever, but they usually can basically rebound from a strike. So dark lightning is an anomaly, and it's actually kind of rare. So I remember talking about the TV show Manifest and the Bermuda Triangle and how lightning had some type of factor in these disappearances. So if you go back to Malaysia 370, I know you're talking about Ashton, talking about 0-point energy and different components to that level. So there's something there there's somebody that has the technology, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in the broadcast here about breakaway civilization. Somebody has the technology to do it. And if I remember correctly, Malaysia 370 had a lot of the occupants on it had, I think, 2 or 3 or maybe 4 folks that had some type of clearance of UFO, if I'm not mistaken.
17. 17. 17, and they were working on anti-gravitic technology. 17 of them. So,
hypothetical, I thought whenever this all happened, I was thinking jumping, time jumping, time warping. You go back to the Admiral Byrd account and then Amelia Earhart. I remember I ran into Philadelphia experiment. I ran into a gentleman that was 47 years of aviation. He retired, and I ran into him when I was before I become the broken down milkman. I actually used to be a milkman and delivered to stores. So I would occasionally see this guy at a truck stop, and he was an elderly man. He retired in aviation for 47 years, and he was talking about Amelia Earhart, and he swore up and down there was and I was having this really complex, deep thought conversation with him one day. and he was talking about Amelia Earhart and his studies because he's researched her for 40 years trying to figure out what was going on with her and what happened to her. And he was claiming that somehow she landed and crashed somewhere around a samurai so-called village, and they tried to revive her, and she had something wrong with her internally for about a year, and she ended up passing away. But here's the interesting conversation. When I looked at him in the face, he goes, there's a time gap. I don't understand. There's like a 6-month time frame based off his story, was saying there's a 6-month gap. And I said to myself, that's strange. So if he's credible or whatever, but the individual he never went public with it, but that was what he said to me in passing. So if there's a time issue there, and Amelia Earhart had ties to Admiral Byrd, if my memory serves me correct, so all these connections and the Philadelphia experiment and everything that happened in the early 1900s, something's going on in the airwaves. Something's going on in the oceans, and the U.S. Navy knows about it. I've looked into this, and there's looking at different types of the Project Philadelphia, and they continued that project. I think it was either called, I mentioned it earlier with the Grand Canyon referring to Rainbow Trail, but I think this one was called Rainbow Project, and I think the destroyer ships went on to use that same tech in the Philadelphia experiment, off Black Ops kind of, secret. And then going forward to that was, I think 1961 was this last year that they used that. Take it for what it is. That's what I looked into. If it's credible, if it's not, I looked into it. That's as far as I got depth and as far as the program continuing the technology, the Philadelphia experiment. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but I hope everybody enjoy this broadcast. I don't want to take up your time there, Brother Rex, because we have literally the countdown to the NASA will be about an hour and 20 minutes from now from the live
20
stream
minutes
of
from
NASA.
now.
20 minutes from now. Excuse me. 20 minutes from now. Forgive me. We're on a different time zone. I looked at the clock wrong. I want to thank you so much for your time here today, Rex, and thanks for coming on here. And we come together with two different perspectives. That's okay. I mean, I thought you're well versed on the topic of 3 atlas, and maybe one day we can get back on here and talk about obelisks and megalithic structures and these monoliths. I would really enjoy that because I love doing that type of thing when it looks into archaeology and looking at just, megalithic structures. I'm big a fan of looking at Indian mounds and what have you. So if you come back, man, I really would like to have you back on. If you get an opportunity, I really would like to have you back on if you'd like to. So
I'd be honored.
Yeah,
and let's get you back on the show. And I hope I didn't upset anybody in the chat. And if I did, I apologize. Just sharing my perspective. So much love to all of you. And Brian, you're a good dude, man. I enjoyed this. So, and I'd like to have you on Leak Project as well.
I appreciate it. But like I said, you're in good company. I talked hillbilly till I was 20 in 2020, but then I started doing a little hybridization of trying to be more, let's just say well-versed in the English language. So, but yeah, for the Kentucky Bluegrass to come from the east side and collaborate with the west coast of Colorado, I've enjoyed this conversation very well. And I hope everybody out there in the airwaves will, like I always say on the channel, just be a better human and have empathy toward folks. And let's just build a better world. When we can do that, we have the ability to do that and not be so cognitive dissonance where we have to listen to nefarious evil plot plans to destroy humanity. So there's a lot to look forward to in the future as far as all the new mechanisms, technology, and what have you. But I'm just so glad to have you on here, Rex, and we'll have to be on the Leak Project. Just name the time and I'll jump back on. But any last words? And respect everybody, folks. Respect Leak Project. Go over there, subscribe to his channel. Let everybody know where they can find you, Rex, because I got your links in the description. And
Sure.
Even the stuff on the side of your camera there. What's all of that powder? What's going on with the boost?
Oh,
What
man.
is that? What is
This
that?
is my, they should call this Gen X boost because I think they'd sell more instead of calling it Boomer Boost because you definitely don't need to be a boomer to take it. But it's Gladiator Barley and Boomer Boost. I take this stuff like every single day. And if you get some, you can go to boomerboost.com, use the code REX20. You'll get 20% off. But it is amazing. It's just, I put a scoop of this and a scoop of this, 2 scoops, put it in my water, and I'll mix it up, take a shot of it. And I love it, man. I think it's absolutely amazing. So, but anyway, you can find me at Leak Project, leakproject.com, Leak Project on Rumble, Leak Project on YouTube. We've got exclusive content on Patreon. And I would just like to say, other than thank you very much, I would like to say, be the change you want to see.
Absolutely. Awesome. And Rex, thank you so much once again for being on here in the Visual Disturbance world. And everybody subscribe to the channel if you get an opportunity, and go subscribe to Leak Project. He'll be live here very soon. And check him out. You'll be glad you did. But folks, thank you all so much for attending with your time today, and your time is very valuable to me. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Share this thing out, like, subscribe, and all that. And thank you all new followers and subscribers during this program. Thank you with open arms. I welcome all humanity for this, and I hope you all come back to Visual Disturbance channel. But with that being said, Visual Disturbance, I am out of here. Be blessed. Have a great day. Be a better human. See you on the next one.
I've got one that can see.